Welcome back to the Boss Responses podcast. I'll be honest, when I first started reading the question for today, I thought it was going to be a doozy. And it is, but not in the way I thought. Today we're talking about what happens when you have clients who constantly hold up the projects by not getting you what you need. Michelle has some great feedback for this one. Let's not waste time. Let's get to the question. If you're a freelancer, business owner, or anyone who deals with clients, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Treasa Edmond. I've been dealing with clients and running my business for nearly 2 decades. And in that time, I've dealt with my share of doubt, imposter syndrome, and not knowing what to say when a client asks a question I wasn't ready for. I created this podcast to empower you with the boss responses you need to grow your business. Each week, my guest co-host and I will bring you 5 episodes packed with practical insights. Monday through Thursday, we answer your questions. And Fridays, we dive deep to explore how our co-hosts embraced their role as the boss of their business. Welcome to Boss Responses. All right, we are back for day 4, and today I'm flipping the tables and asking Michelle the question. So Michelle, this says nightmare client story incoming. That always makes me shiver a bit. This is my 3rd project with this client. They pay my rates without complaint. They love my work and they're great to work with. All good things. But they constantly hold the projects up by not getting me what I need, and then they want me to rush to finish the project on time. How can I address this before our next project?
Yikes, right?
Yeah.
The quote that I'm going to refer back to, poor planning on your part does not necessitate an emergency on mine.
Yes.
That's the quote. And I actually had to pull it up so I could read it just like it's written. But I've had this happen and it makes my life very difficult. And if I love working with them, I think it's worth having a conversation and not you try to point out all the positives before you bring up the issue by saying, gosh, I love working with you and I love what we're doing together and all the positives, and then say, but really to do my best work for you, to deliver my best work, I would like to ask if we can do something about the timing with which you get me what I need to do the project. So I would be upfront about it. And even if it's not a difficult conversation, if it's not a fun conversation to have, I think if it's a client that you want to have a relationship with and you want to have a good relationship with, that you should have that conversation and kind of maybe almost script out what you're going to say and what they might say. And then that's how I do it. I play it back and forth in my head. Sometimes clients are perfectly fine and they understand and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this, we were doing this and this was causing these issues. And if they don't understand or they get upset or irritated or whatever, then it's good to have kind of a response in mind about what you might say to go back and forth with them.
Yeah. And with this one, I see 2 possible situations. One, you did your due diligence up front. You told them how the process works, and you set reasonable deadlines for both sides of the equation. That's if they are still late after that and holding you up, then yeah, jump on that conversation. Don't ever be afraid to just have a conversation with your client if they're doing something probably without malice or forethought that's really causing you issues. The other issue is if you didn't do that. If you have not set up clear terms of engagement in this relationship, and you have not told them what the process is going to look like, and you have not told them, in order for me to do this by this day, I need this from you by this day, then you're actually the problem. I think the situation really depends on, are you doing your client management, your communication, your onboarding of your client well? If you are, and it's them, then have an open, honest conversation on them or with them. Do not cast blame out there. Just say, this is what's happening. This is the result. This is what we can do to fix it. And then they either fall in line or they don't. Clients that you love, and this sounds like one of those clients we all love, will usually step up and do their part. If they don't, they will very quickly become a toxic client because you give them an inch and they take a mile. And you don't want to do that. If the problem is you, If you do not have a clearly defined process and your work depends on their work, like with my ghostwriting, I send chapters for review to my clients. I need those, especially the first few chapters back, so that I can see their feedback before I continue writing, because that saves me an immense amount of work as I go on. If I didn't hold them to those deadlines, that would be my problem. So if I didn't ever even tell them the deadlines and the book gets behind because I didn't, that's my problem. If I've clearly delineated that, and you can bet I give them a schedule. It's Treasa's due date, their due date. Treasa's due date, their due date. It's all clearly laid out on there. That way, if either one of us gets behind, we know what's going on. We can fix it. We can revise. We know it's going to push the deadline out. But that's on me. That is not on my client. I'm the expert. You're the expert. I'm sure it's the same thing with your PR clients. You are the expert. You know how long it's going to take. They don't. And if there's something that could hold that up, then you need to hold them accountable in a very business-like and gentle way to do it. I think a lot of this falls back on the freelancers. I've had clients that have delayed, and it's not a problem for me because I clearly stayed up front. If you do not respond by this date, the original project due date will not be able to be completed. I mean, I'm clear about that.
Yeah. And I do try to set up a timeline so that we both go over it and agree and talk through it. Because with PR, it's really important because sometimes if they want an announcement to go out on a certain date, I have to do things before that, of course, to get that ready to go. And we have to have everything done and approved and signed off. And really 24 to 48 hours, if you're going to issue something on a newswire or whatever, you have to have all that done. It's really important. And I do agree that setting those expectations is important. But I have had clients that just cannot get their act together and they'll just be late getting me stuff. And yeah, sometimes it just has to be pushed back if they haven't given me enough time.
Yeah. And if they do that, it's on them at that point because I've done my thing. And I see this with PR, with clients I'm working with, that I'm working with them to get a bylined article or an interview with a reporter, and that reporter's writing the piece and they send it back for approvals, and then it takes forever and the reporter's going to drop it. If they don't get it done, then a lot of your stuff, especially Michelle, is so time sensitive that they'll move on to the next person. It doesn't hurt them at all to do that.
Right. Yep.
So do your due diligence. I'm not sure I would call this a nightmare client story. I would say it has the potential to be a nightmare client story. Right now, it's a good client who's a bit unsure about life. So just guide them. That's all we can do. All right, come back and join us tomorrow for day 5 with Michelle. We are going to talk all about her business, how she got started, and how she manages her clients, because PR is an interesting world. See you tomorrow.